Good morning. We're going to ask everyone to take their seats. We're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning. Can we ask everyone to take their seats? Good morning. The meeting of the Louisiana Tax Commission is hereby called to order. The meeting is being held at the offices of the Louisiana Tax Commission at 1051 North 3rd Street, Suite 225, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The date is Wednesday, July 10th, 2024. The time is 9 a.m. Please call the roll.
Chairman Roussel,
Here?
Commissioner Leone,
Here.
Commissioner Romick,
Here.
Commissioner Guidry, Commissioner Frazier,
Here.
5 present and a quorum.
Okay. Is there any old business to come before the commission? Okay. Approval of minutes? We have.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 26th meeting.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Next item is consideration of change orders.
Chandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today, we have a total of 596 change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve 529, place 65 in pending status, and deny 2. Staff requests approval of these change orders.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve 529 change orders and place 65 in pending status and deny 2 for reasons given by staff.
We have a motion. Is there any question on the motion? Any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Chandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today, we have a total of 18 prior pending change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve all 18. Staff requests approval of prior pending change orders.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve all 18 prior pending change orders as reviewed and requested by staff.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Consideration of tax sale cancellation.
Chandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today, we have a total of 3 tax sale cancellations. We have 2 in East Baton Rouge Parish and 1 in St. Tammany Parish, all due to being erroneously sold. Staff requests approval of 3 tax sale cancellations.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the 3 tax sale.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Next item on the agenda is the delegation appointing authorities. Mark?
Good morning, Mark Falcon, Division of Administration. You should have, each of you should have copies of the resolutions and the delegations that I previously provided for y'all. I'm here to answer any questions. Otherwise, I would ask that there be a motion to approve and adopt the resolutions, and the resolution then will authorize the delegations. And I'll need some signatures, and that would be it for our purposes here today.
Thank you, Mark. Thank Cheryl, too, for your work on this. Any questions from the commission? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the resolution for the delegation of appointing authority.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Just for clarity purposes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like for you to put on the record that the resolution delegating to you appointing authority status for the employees of the Tax Commission, that you're going to abstain from voting on that one.
Yeah.
Otherwise, in addition to the resolution, which they speak for themselves, but there's an authorization for the chairman to sign the delegation to the administrator, and there's also a delegation by each of you to the chairman. So part of your motion, I think, needs to be that we'll have the resolution and the corresponding delegations. So if you could just supplement your motion substantially to that effect.
We're happy to supplement it, and please let the record show that I abstained on the vote that assigned it, that delegated it to me.
And just a supplemental motion, if you don't mind, authorizing the delegations associated with the resolution that you've already indicated your approval to sign.
Okay, can we have a motion?
So, Mr. Chair, I amend my motion, continuing with the approval of the delegation of appointing authority by the Authentic Act, as well as the delegation of appointing authority.
That, well sedated, that's good.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any question or discussion? Any objection? Hearing the motion is adopted, note that I abstained on the motion. Thank you all so much for your help with this.
Can we take a minute to get the appropriate signatures?
We're going to take a 2-minute break just to finalize these signatures real quick so that we can enact some stuff later today. Apologize for the inconvenience. We're going to get back to our agenda now. The next item on the agenda is the LTC special recognition. I would ask Calendar to step up, please. Ms. Terry has been one of the long-term employees of this department for things, and we have a special statement from the governor that he has issued. So from Jeff Landry, Governor, official statement, in the name and by the authority of the state of Louisiana, Governor Jeff Landry, together with the citizens of this great state, do hereby give special recognition to Terry Calendar in acknowledgement of 47 years of dedicated service with the Louisiana Tax Commission. So we just wanted to thank you so much for your service. It's tremendous, and it's it's an honor that we get to work with you.
Ms. Terry, before you go, we just want to say from all of us as commissioners, that's outstanding. And thank you for your service. And if ever you feel the need that you need anything from any of us, we want you to call us personally, okay? Because what you've done for us and making us look the way we look up here every Wednesday, that means a lot. Would you like to share any words with us, Ms. Terry?
Before you go, Ms. Terry,
We'll get back to the agenda. The next item on the agenda is appeals. Mr. Hoffman?
Morning. Swear everybody in, who'll be testifying this morning, just stand up in your chair if you have any appeals in today's docket. You'll be on for testimony. I'll administer an oath to you. I'll indicate to you individually to affirm the oath. Swear affirm the testimony.
I do, Sarah Taylor.
I do, Mike Taylor. I do, Garden Garden. I do, Robert Johnson. I do, Wilson Heather. Do Ted Bogan. Thank you. Take care of the appraisers. Appraisers, I'll administer an oath to you. I ask you to raise your right hand, affirm the oath individually when I state your name. Do you swear or affirm? George, I'll let you get settled there. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Luke?
I do.
George?
I do.
And Daniel?
I do.
Thank you.
First appeal?
I will ask that everyone use this time to silence all their cell phones, please. The first appeal we'll take up today is the appeal of Wilson Hildebrandt versus Assessor Sarah Taylor and the Plaquemines Parish Board of Review, docket number 22075-001.
Mr. Hildebrand, you can go first.
Good morning, Commissioners.
We'd ask you to speak directly into the mic.
Okay. Is it on? It's green. There you go. Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman. My name's Will Hildebrand. I reside at 116 Pye Street, Belle Chase, Plaquemines Parish. It's probably going to be a little different than most of your hearings because we'll be dealing with damage from Hurricane Ida. Okay, so My home was damaged by Hurricane Ida in August of 2021. Water entered through holes in the roof, came through the ceiling, and settled on the floor. The roof was temporarily repaired to prevent further damage. According to contractors, my roofing and flooring is beyond repair and needs replacing. It will cost $13,400 for the repairs. Temporary repairs were also done to sheetrock on the ceilings. So if I was to sell my house in its current condition, I would have to lower my asking price by $13,400, which is the amount I'm asking you to lower the valuation. My home, without any damage, is valued by the assessor at $120,000. So the value I am asking from you is $106,600. So, Mr. Chairman, is this a trial?
No, sir, it's not.
It's not,
It's a hearing.
administrative trial?
We're not judges. We're just here to make a determination.
Okay, does it go by rule of law?
We go by rule of fairness and rule of what we think is best. Your legal option after the tax commission is to appeal to the Board of Appeals.
Okay.
That's when it becomes a trial.
Okay, because I'm going to introduce evidence that's law, a statute. That's law. And
Was
so-
it information that was submitted to us prior to the hearing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if it's related to your appeal, we'll hear it.
Okay. So we'll get right into the evidence. And Exhibit A shows pictures. If y'all have the pictures. Okay. Shows, pardon me? Okay. So Exhibit A shows pictures of roof damage and water damage to the flooring from Hurricane Ida. You'll notice dozens of areas damaged on the front and rear roofing in various places. In the pictures, you can see the front is damaged in many areas and the rear is too. And there's pictures of the flooring that's water damaged. Okay. Exhibit B shows properties that were damaged during Hurricane Ida and reassessed in their damaged condition after Hurricane Ida and the property value lowered by the Plaquemines assessor. According to public record request, the Plaquemines assessor indicates that a total of 10 applications were filed for disaster reduction. 3 of the 10 properties applying for disaster reduction are located within 1 mile of subject property. Excuse me. Exhibit C includes the residential disaster reduction application from the assessor's office and estimates for roofing and flooring repairs. Exhibit D contains Louisiana revised statute. Now, this is the law that I'm going to cite, RS 1978.1, stating that properties in Louisiana that have been damaged after the governor of Louisiana declares an emergency for that parish must be reassessed in its damaged condition. You also find Louisiana Tax Commission statewide advisory 03-2021 issued by the Chief Administrator, Michael Mathern, stating that the Tax Commission encouraged any taxpayer whose property was destroyed, damaged, non-operational, uninhabitable due to Hurricane Ida to document all issues, damages, destruction, and submit all documentation, including photographs, to their assessor. Okay. On the occurrence A, the governor declared Plaquemines Parish under a state of emergency before Ida's landfall. B, my home was damaged by Ida. C, I filed all documentation, including photographs, with my assessor. So I complied with all 3 requirements for the RS 1978.1 to take effect. Now, I fulfilled all requirements, yet my assessor refuses to process my residential disaster reduction application. It's been 2 years since I supplied the application, all the photographs, all the documentation for repairs, and the assessor still has not processed the application. Just there's no word, yes or no, zero damage, more damage, there's no determination by the assessor's office. The reason the assessor gives for this is the assessor gives various reasons for not processing my application, which constantly changes over time. A, that I should have asked for the damages to be included in my appeal to the Board of Review in 2021, just days after Ida made landfall. There was not enough time to require estimates. It's just days after Ida had hit. B, there was not sufficient damage in my geographical location. Not true. 3 of the 10 applications for residential disaster reduction are within 1 mile of my house. 3 out of the 10 in my neighborhood. That's the reason she gave for not processing my application. Actually, the 4 houses directly behind me had their roofs replaced. My next door neighbor had extensive damage, and my neighbor 2 doors down still has tar paper patching his roof. So my geographical location had widespread damage. Might have been from a tornado or whatever, but we had it in my neighborhood, in that geographical location. So is this the proper venue? This is the proper venue for applying RS 47 1978.1 to set the valuation of my property. A precedence has been set by the previous commission, chaired by Commissioner Shahardi, on March 2022 meeting for the Plaquemines Parish. At that meeting, the commissioner chairman instructed the Plaquemines assessor to apply RS 47 1978.1 to a property under appeal after Hurricane Ida. The chair also informed the assessor that all properties damaged after Hurricane Ida would need to be reassessed in its damaged condition. The assessor was instructed on the spot during the meeting to calculate what the valuation of the property in its damaged condition should be. Ultimately, the assessor's value was not accepted by the commission, and a reduction of $220,000 was applied to the
Excuse me,
suburban.
I'm gonna stop
gun,
you, I'm gonna stop
garage,
you right,
and motor-
excuse me. Is this the appeal you're talking about is your appeal or another appeal?
This is another appeal.
Okay, we're not gonna discuss that. Stick to your appeal. If you have anything else to add on your appeal, we'll hear it.
Yes, sir.
We're not gonna reiterate what we did, the past commission did, or what the previous chairman did.
Okay,
Today is about your appeal.
I'm just trying to set
I'm-
precedents.
It has no relative on today's hearing. It has no relative on your question of value today. Don't care what the old tax commission did. Don't care what the previous chairman did. We're going to talk about your appeal.
Because my assessor did not do her duty, I am here today to ask you to do the work my assessor refuses to do, just like in the case I just cited. Threw me off track there.
I'm going to ask you to get back on the specifics of your
Okay.
appeal. We're not going to sit here and go through cases of past history. We're not going to sit here and have you bash on the assessor. Get back to your questions on your appeal so that we can hear from both sides and make a decision.
Okay, so I'm almost done. Okay, so it's not like the assessor does not know what to do. It's been proven on record that the assessor refuses to do her job when it comes to
Stop,
reassessing
stop.
properties.
We are not going to sit here and bash on the assessor and tell her whether she refuses to do her job or not. The question gets back to, do you have more information about the specifics of your appeal, not the performance of the assessor?
Yes, Okay.
If not,
okay. The staff appraiser took pictures of water damaged areas on the ceilings of my home. He observed that at least 3 rooms had sheetrock repairs done due to water damage caused by water that had leaked in when the roof was ripped off during item. Surely if water came through the roof, entered on the ceiling, it had to end up on the wood flooring, warping and damaging it also. Okay, almost done. In summary, three things had to happen for RS 471978.1 to apply. The governor had to declare Plaquemines Parish under a declaration of emergency. The property has to be damaged by the disaster. 3, I must supply all documentation of damage to the assessor. All 3 steps in the process have been satisfied. I respectfully ask you to value my property in its damaged condition at 106.6. And Mr. Chairman, may I request that a roll call vote be taken at the appropriate time? Thanks for your time, and I'll take any questions.
Okay. Moving on to the assessors.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Sarah Taylor, Assessor for Plaquemines Parish and a certified residential real estate appraiser with over 20 years of experience. I've submitted all of the evidence. Exhibit A supports the value we came up with during the 2020 reassessment of 147. Exhibit B, because of the post-Ida reduction request, is all sales in the immediate area post-Hurricane Ida. I'd like to point out that the property is at 116 Pie, the subject property we're talking about. 115 Pie, which is directly across the street, sold for $259,000 in February of 2024. So that's post-Ida. 114 Pie, which is the house directly next door, sold for $252,000. That was in November of 2022. I'd like to say that 114 Pie, I attached pictures of the interior. It has not been updated. The roof on the MLS sheet is disclosed as unknown. The age was unknown. And you can see from the aerial imagery, there is a patch on that roof. So the assessor has complied with revised statute 1978, which was also upheld in the court of law when we were sued by the taxpayer in addition. But we have considered all of this. We have considered the value in its damaged condition. And I stand before you with 4 years of research on this property. There is no reason that this value should be any lower than 120. It should be higher, but we set it at 120 during the Board of Review in 2022. So thank you. That's it. I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Assessor Taylor. Can we hear from the LTC appraiser?
The last time I inspected this house was December 1st of 2023. I included pictures of the interior. If it had water damage, it did not show. I didn't see anything. The roof looked fine. The interior ceilings were painted and the floor was, I mean, it's an older floor, but it's still in good shape. My appraisal was, oh, hold on. I have to get to the right page. I appraised this property for $120,000. The land value of 58.8.
Thank you. Questions from the commission?
I just have one question, Mr. Chairman. For the parish assessor, Ms. Sarah,
Yes, sir.
were you able to gain interest to the property?
No, I did not. I won't go into the property without someone with me.
All right, thank you.
I'm sorry, we have had interior photos provided by the taxpayer for the original appeal in 2020. Those pictures, which I included in Exhibit A, are very comparable to some of the sales that I included during the 2020 appeal, which supported the value of 147.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'd like to respond to that. The assessor and the deputy assessor came out after I initially filed the disaster application. They were both invited, and there was 2 people with them. It's middle of the day. by myself, and they were both invited to come into the house numerous times. They refused to come in to see the damage.
Thank you.
And I may add, I have two witnesses I would like to speak on my behalf,
Witness to what?
damage to my property.
We have that in our files already. We have it with the pictures. There's no need for witnesses to document that. This is not a trial. This is a hearing. If you want to appeal after today to the Board of Tax Appeals, you can do that. You can call all the witnesses you want.
Okay.
Sorry, we're gonna move on. Okay, any questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the appraisal set by LTC staff as agreed to by the parish assessor. Land of 58.8, improvements of 61.2, for a total of 120,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? I understand Mr. Hildebrand asked for a roll call vote. That's at the discretion of the chairman. There's no need for a roll call vote. Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
The next appeal we'll take up this morning is the appeal of Brookwood LC Common versus Assessor Aguilard and the Calcasieu Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-220-19007.
The taxpayer, anyone from the taxpayer? Ms. Aguilar, go ahead.
Good morning, Wendy Aguilar, Calcasieu Assessor. I would simply, this is a first for me. I've never had a taxpayer not show up. So unless you guys want to hear all of this, I would just ask that you uphold my valuation as it currently stands.
Good enough. Can we hear from the LTC appraiser?
Good morning, Mike Cater, LTC appraiser. Subject was a commercial property located at 3401 Common Street in Lake Charles. The appeal was assumed to be both site and improvements. The improvements were recently constructed. They were a 4-story building. It was considered in excellent condition. To determine the value, we did a land sales grid to do a property value of the site. That yielded a value of $696,500. We then did an improved property through the cost approach through Marshall and Swift that yielded a value of $6,441,500, which included land. Final value was land $696,500. Improvements, $5,745,000. The total value, $6,441,500.
Thank you. Questions from the commission?
I have a question, to the parish assessor. What, I see a couple of different values. What value are y'all asking for, 7.8 or 7.4?
So we have the property assessed at a total of 7,454,033. I would ask that you uphold that valuation. Correct.
And that would be with land at the 696.5?
That is correct.
What?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, that's with land at 335,100. I apologize. There's multiple assessments for this parcel, but the one particular parcel that was being discussed because of multiple assessments, or that the appeal was filed on, was this one parcel, 00375470.
Any other questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I have a question for the LTC staff. Sir, just could you explain for me, first time seeing this, your cost approach on the improvements? And I guess I'm trying to understand the relationship at the time that the actual improvements and the cost of those improvements occurred in how you get to your cost approach.
Well, we use a computerized Marshall and Swift service, which they factor in cost and building components, for particular areas. And we do an inspection of the property so we can get square footage, stories. And we, on this particular building here, we considered in excellent condition, with a 1-year effective age. And we plug in all that into the computer system and it gives us a total. And then we supplement it by the land value that we determine in our sales grid for vacant land.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, then just for the assessor, certainly citing the permit that was issued for construction, the certificate of occupancy, and the actual dollar amount for that permit was the actual true cost of construction for whatever that,
Assuming the
Okay.
permitting was correct, yes, sir.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have just one question for the parish assessor, Ms. Wendy. Ms. Wendy, could you go through the numbers once more for me for land and improvements in total? So
Sure.
that I can understand what the numbers are truly.
So
because they're a little bit different.
Okay, so if you look at my letter of explanation, it explains that there are multiple tracts of land here. So although the one parcel has $335,000 on it, there's another parcel as well. So the total land, if you want to include all of the land for the property, is a total of $827,900. They paid $1.2 million for all the different tracts. So we're under that. This particular parcel at the time of appeal was 335. For 2023, later in the year, all of the parcels were combined and we're at a total valuation of 827. But this particular parcel at the time had 335 on it. And that was the only parcel that was appealed. And then the improvements themselves, we also used Marshall and Swift. And at the time, my appraiser made an adjustment. And so our value for the building itself is $118,933. So for a total on this parcel alone at 7,454 is where we were. We have the total assessment of all of the property itself. I believe the total with the other tract of land comes in at 7,4. Maybe I don't have that one with me. No, 7,454 plus there's another tract of land that adds another 130,000 to the total value. So altogether, we're at roughly 7,800. Again, below everything, 1.2 for the land and over 8 million for the permit itself to build the building.
Just so everyone, we're on the same page. So the land value or the assessor's request is 335,100. Improvement values is $7,118,933 for a total of $7,454,033.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, if there's no more questions by the commissioners, I'd like to go ahead and move forward with the parish assessor's value of the property that's been appraised.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you. We have another one. Yeah.
Don't have to go far.
I know.
Next, we'll take up the appeal of Interior Sky, Lake Charles versus Assessor Aguilar in the Calcasieu Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-220-19008.
Assessor Aguilar?
So I don't believe there's anyone here for that one as well. Again, I would ask that you uphold my valuation. I will explain that this particular property, which is a strip center with some out parcel buildings, for 2020, 2021, and 2022, it had disaster relief applied to it because of Hurricane Laura and Hurricane Delta. So we had reduced valuation all of the statutes that were talked about earlier, for all of our properties in Calcasieu. Every property in Calcasieu was reduced for 2020, 2021, and 2022. We needed further information from property owners, but this particular property owner did apply for hurricane disaster relief, and it was granted. For 2023, the valuation adjustment that you see comes from restoring the value to its prior value before the hurricane. It's simply going back to a pre-storm valuation, and that was based on previous assessment. This property, other than, I should say that other than one of the out parcel buildings, that is still currently being carried as a salvage valuation, because at the time of the appeal, it had not been torn down, nor had it been restored. They are working to restore it now. I have got permitting for that, but they hadn't at the time. So the valuation was simply being returned to pre-storm values. I can tell you that this property at the time of the appeal, we have the property assessed at 5 million, let's see, 5,461,100. It was for sale at the time for over $10 million. And based on the information that was provided by the tax rep for an income approach to valuation, which I kind of think would be the best way to do this as far as an appraisal. The information that was being provided in the sale document versus the information that the tax rep gave me to review income were not the same numbers. So I did provide several income approaches to value. I used an income approach to value based solely on all of the information being provided in the sale. Okay, so the dollar per square foot, the occupancy rate, so forth, and came up with a value of around 9 million. Then I also did an income approach with general uniform values that we would use in Calcasieu for this like property, and it came out to roughly 7 million 3. You can see that we are below all of those values at this point. So I would respectfully ask that you just uphold my value as it currently stands.
Thank you, Assessor Aguilar. LTC, Mike?
Mike Cater, Louisiana Tax Commission appraiser. To be brief, the property protested, I divided it into 3 main sections. Section 1 was occupied a fast food restaurant out next to the highway. It had an effective age of 20 years in average condition. Section 2 was occupied by a retail business. It had an effective age of 10 years and was considered in average condition. The largest part, Section 3, was a shopping center, and it did have some issues with condition. I put effective age on it as 40 years, and it certainly had some vacancies in it. I determined the value through a cost report through Marshall and Swift. Came out with a total value of $4,983,500. Of that, $1,058,500 was land, leaving $3,925,000 for improvements.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? There are none. May I hear a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move forward with the parish assessor's appraisal of land at $1,058,500 and improvements at $4,402,600 and a total of $5,461,100.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Second math.
745.
So, Chandrika, I think the motion that was made on the Brookwood property set a value at 7,454, 433?
And it should be 033.
033. So Chairman, if we could reconsider If we could reconsider the Brookwood appeal, Chairman, if someone can make a motion to reconsider the ruling on the Brookwood appeal, and let's correct evaluation.
We have the. We have a motion. Is there any discussion other than that the chairman can't add, apparently? Hearing no objection, motion is adopted.
And now you
Amended
can enter-
motion is adopted with the correct total.
Oh, and then entertain a motion for the correct totals. So land at 335,100, improvement at 7,118,933, total value of 7,454,033.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the Brookwood property docket 23220190007, land valued at $335,100, improvements at $7,118,933, for a total of $7,454,033.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll take up the appeal of Kathleen C. Cresson versus Assessor L.G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-72188.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I did. Kathleen Cresson. Okay, thanks.
Ma'am, you can go ahead and get started.
Okay, so do you want to take my house first? Is that the order we're going in? I have 7, that's why. Okay, 324 South Clark. Okay, give me a minute.
From the commissioners, we're on 324 South Clark Street, New Orleans.
All right, so my name's Kathleen Cresson. My mother owned this property. She's deceased now. I'm executrix of the succession, so that's why I'm here. The city wants $310,000 for this property, but yet interestingly, they did an appraisal and submitted it as an exhibit for $330,000 by one Aisha Malvosan. Is that appraiser here today that I can question her?
That's the city's appraiser. That's not
Yes.
the tax commission.
Yes, it's a city. Russell?
No, ma'am. Aisha Malvosan is an appraiser for the assessor's office. She is not here. I am acting as representative for the office. You may direct all questions to me if you like.
And I think her appraisal should be thrown out if she did the appraisal's not here. Okay, and the reason is, if you look at what I had asked for was, let's see. So I'm not letting other people testify as to her appraisal. I make an objection to Russell answering that. So when George Wilson did the appraisal for South Clark, he came in at 182,000. And the reason is because, and when I submitted my exhibits, that I have tons of repairs to do that property. That property is literally disintegrating before my eyes. I've asked the city many times, come inside, they pass by the outside. But if you look at the outside, so it's gonna cost me $51,000. It's sinking in the front from all the water intrusion. And so it's sinking, so what they have to do is go in, tear out the porch, support the property, tear out the beams, and you'll see in my exhibits, it was from Richard Earl's construction. And that doesn't cover everything. That's just to, the big chain wall that it sits on, that's huge, has to be broken up, pulled out, put a new chain wall, concrete, steel reinforced, put the porch back, put the railings back, and that was 51. That doesn't even counting painting. There's so much painting that has to be done. I have to do carpentry work.
I have to pay a painter to paint those rails, paint the front. The gutter cans are terrible, okay? It's just, I haven't been able to keep up with the property, and the property's just taken a turn for the worse with the foundation problem. So I will submit that I will agree to the, I had asked for a little less, I think, to keep it at what it was last year, 171, because when I looked at being an attorney and being a real estate broker for 40 years, I started doing comparables, and they say that the city's property has decreased like 8% from last year, from the year before. So I was asking for a little less. I think it'd keep it at last year's price, but I'll accept the state's appraisal of 182.
Okay, thank you. Russell, City of New Orleans Assessor's Office?
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners. Russell Amros for the Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. So this property is a multifamily property located in the Jefferson Davis / Banks neighborhood. All comparable sales employed in the appraisal are within the lien date and located in or near the subject property's neighborhood. We did a sales comparison approach that yielded a value of $330,000, which is a fee simple appraisal, different from our mass appraisal. Our CAM evaluation was originally $310,000. We're not asking for the $330,000. We're asking to affirm the Board of Review's valuation of $310,000. We did not receive any documentation from the taxpayer. We said that as a written objection to the commission. The only information that I have came from the tax commission staff appraisal. There are a few things in there that we had an issue with. It calls it fair condition, but from all I can see is there's some peeling paint. There was a bid for a porch repair that seemed kind of excessive to me. The bid came in at $344 per square foot, which seems kind of excessive for a porch repair. There's no estimates for any interior work, so we can't verify that there's substantial repairs needed for the interior. And as far as the sales comparison approach, Comp 1 and 3022 Palmyra should not be used as a comparable sale because it's part of a succession. The notes in MLS say property is part of a succession and may be sold as part of a package with other doubles as well. It says that it's a historic double in need of TLC. Comp number 2 is a bond for deed, which means it's not an arm's length transaction at all. The notes in MLS say this double is part of a larger portfolio of 140 rental units throughout New Orleans and the surrounding areas. Comp number 3 is a succession resale. To be fair to the tax commission staff appraiser, he couldn't have known that because we had the information, the actual succession itself. But from what we're seeing is two out of the 3 comparables, 2 are successions, 1's a bond for deed. None of them are arm's length transactions. We asked the commission to affirm the Board of Review's valuation.
Okay, thank you, Russell. We'll hear from the LTC appraiser, Mr. Wallace.
Yes, sir. I appraised the property on April 16th of 2024. The land value was contested, although the $75,600 is in support of the land value found in my report. I did use a sales comparison approach, had an adjusted value range of 164.6 to 190,000 and had a final value of 182,000. That would be 75,600 to the land, 106,400 to the improvement. For the sake of time, I'm not going to break down every comparable sale that the appraisal from the tax assessor's office, but they also used one of the sales that he says shouldn't be used in my report. That's their sale too, 3022 Palmyra Street. It was a succession, although I felt like it fell in line with the other sales. So that's incorrect for him to be saying not to use it, but yet it's used in their report. One other note that I see in their report, again, I haven't really reviewed their appraisals and picked all their comps apart, but I find it unusual that their unadjusted sales prices before adjustments range from $190,000 to $412,000. And after adjustments, they're 218,000 to 381,000, which to me is excessive. That's $163,000 range that they have to choose from. And one other item within their report, they state that there were no noted apparent deficiencies that were viewed that would affect the livability, soundness, or structural integrity of the property. Although I was provided with the estimates for the porch, I considered and they were about 51,000 to 51 to 55,000. That didn't include the exterior paint or the observations from the gutters that need total replacement. The reason I have it most likely overall it is in fair condition, but I mean in average condition, but I put fair because the front porch is dilapidated enough to where it does affect the structural integrity of the property. There's front rails that if you lean on them, you could probably fall over. And I also considered some incidentals once they get into tearing that porch out. There's probably some contingency factors that you ought to consider. So I'm thinking that the repairs are closer to 75 to 100,000. So I stand by my value and I'll answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you.
I have
Question-
no questions, George. Thank you.
Questions from the commission?
I have one to the taxpayer. So is the property uninhabitable, unrentable, or do you rent
No,
any?
you can still live in it. The 3 people I called out to repair it said it's not in danger of collapsing, but it's so bad, you can actually go to the post on the left and move it. So the only 2 things supporting it are the 2 posts on the right. And I would like to point out what George said about Russell Amarez's incorrectness. He says he thought 51,000 for a porch is excessive. It's not the porch. The porch sits on the chain wall, but it sits on the way they explained it to me. The porch sits on the sill that sits on the chain wall. It's all rotten. It all has to be replaced. And so, he also had said another incorrectness that I gave none of this to him except
Ma'am,
what he got
ma'am,
from the
I'm
text.
sorry. It's not, it's the assessor's giving his opinion, you're giving your opinion too. It's not a question of correct or incorrectness. Let's not make it personal. Just
I'm not trying to, I'm just trying to refute the
then
incorrect.
then just say, I don't agree. I state this.
It's
This
incorrect.
is not a, this
It's
is
not
not
a
a,
question.
ma'am, this is not a courtroom. It's not a bunch of lawyers we're performing with. It doesn't have to say it's incorrect. Just said, I disagree with the assessor's statement and state what you're disagreeing.
Okay, so I can say that then. Okay, so I disagree that it's just a porch. It's the sills, the foundation. You can inhabit the inside, but the front is terrible. Things are falling off the side, so I'm trying to get to it as soon as I can. And then, and also what the appraiser said, this is a succession. So I disagree when Russell said, oh, well, we shouldn't use these because they succession property. This is succession property. And, but I just disagree that I never gave any of this to the city. When I go to the first hearing with the city, I sent that appraisal. And I do what I sent to the tax assessors, what I sent to them. Then I go to the Board of Review, present it again. Now the 3rd time, but before you. So thank you for your time. I would submit that, I agree with George Wallace's, appraisal.
Okay, thank you.
I have
Question
one.
from the commission.
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Chairman. For the taxpayer, ma'am, you were stating earlier that there are some problems toward the front of the home and that the rails are kind of really not in that good a shape. Am I correct in saying that?
None of the front is in shape.
Right, and you said there was some foundation problem.
Yeah, it's
Am I-
all due to foundation. What's basically happened is the house is sinking forward.
Yes, ma'am. And my
And-
next question
ahead.
is, you are still renting that property out, am I correct?
Yes, I am.
Should people be in
I
that
had
property?
to come down on rent
Okay,
because of the porch issue and
right.
stuff.
But
And it
some of
took
the
me-
things
Go ahead.
that you mentioned in stating that should there be people living there if what you're saying is true
No, 'cause
about the condition of it?
I asked 3 people I called out to look at it for various things. I'm an attorney. I don't want to get sued. I don't want my succession to get sued. So the very first thing I said, should I put my tenants out? Is this in danger of collapsing? And they all 3 said it is not in danger of collapsing. Now the porch is getting spongy, so I don't want them falling through the porch. So I told them, you're welcome to use the back door. Like, I give them warnings. And in fact, one girl said, when are you going to get to it? I said, I'm getting to it as soon as I can. You know, unfortunately, fighting all this just wastes a lot of time. So no, if you're worried about if it's a safety issue, they tell me it's not a safety issue. And I told the tenants, if you feel the porch is too spongy, just use the back. So I give adequate warnings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
Any
Chair,
other
I just
questions
have,
from the commission?
yes, I'm sorry, sir. For the tax assessor and for LTC staff, this is going to be addressed to both of you on that property at 3022 Palmyra. Just to confirm, what I'm seeing is that each of you rated that property as fair condition. And if you could confirm that as well as your value on that property. Mr. Alvarez, I see it at 218,690.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And Mr. Wallace, I see that as 190,000. On your
Yes, the sales price I'm reporting at 190,000.
Thank you. So fairly tight in that, both in succession, that's been acknowledged. Thank you. No further questions.
Any additional questions from the
I
commission?
have one more question to the taxpayer. You're saying it's rented, is both of them rented?
I just rented the second one. It took me like 2 years to rent it because of the porch situation.
What is your rent amount per unit?
They 1,300.
Thank you.
Hearing no additional questions, do I hear a motion from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I move to assess the property at 204,350 total, land at 75,600, improvements at 128,750. That's in line with my average on the comparable property.
We have a motion. Is there any question on the motion?
Could you repeat that, Greg? I didn't catch that.
Certainly.
I'm sorry.
Land at 75,600, improvements at 128,750, for a total of $204,350.
Question on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none?
Yes, I object to it. May I ask him? Oh, okay. Sorry.
Any objection from the commission? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Okay, and I just want to clarify that was for docket number 23-221-71202. All right, moving along to the appeal of Kathleen C. Cresson versus Assessor L.G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-72188. And this is for 851 Allen Toussaint Boulevard.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so 851, it used to be Robert E. Lee, now it's Allen Toussaint. I live there. I live upstairs because the downstairs of about 2,500 square feet, I've not been able to repair from Katrina. It's still studs. I don't even have the sheetrock in. I sent pictures. This has been an ongoing battle with the city. I'm basically using it as a basement. I have no kitchen. When I live at another rental unit. I'll use whatever rental unit's not rented. I'll use the stove there, whatever. So, it's a basement downstairs. So I sent in pictures to the city, to the tax assessor. They can't, let me see. The city wants $643,900. I asked to keep it like it was last year, 301. The state tax assessor said it's assessed at 355. The reason I would like the 301 is because the state, when they come do the appraisal, seem to give a much higher value to the land than the city does. So when Luke did the appraisal, and I've argued with them because I've dealt with appraisers, and what they tell me is you cannot value a piece of land that has a house on it the same as you would a raw lot. Because they tell me the raw lot, people can build anything. When you have the land, you're stuck with the land. If you have the house, you're stuck with the way it is. So what happened was, the state appraiser gave in land, higher, 278, where the city gives it at 238. And so when I read Luke's appraisal, when he said land, he put as vacant. The land's not vacant. You see what I'm saying? So if he puts it like it's a raw lot, I don't think that's proper. And so that's what he specifically says, land as vacant. So the city put 238, I think I ought to get 40,000, it's a 40,000 difference. So if you get the state appraisal of the 355 and take off the 40, that brings you to 315. I'd like to keep it what it was last year, just because I don't see houses going up. And all that's going up is when you try to have people fix things, it's a fortune. And they don't fix it right, and you usually have to pay for it 3 times. So I would like to keep it at 301. You can look at the pictures. It's non-functioning, no kitchen, and the bigger part of the house is downstairs. I think it's 2,500 square feet downstairs.
Thank you. New Orleans Assessor's Office?
Yes, sir. So the property was originally valued at 643,900. It was brought to my attention during the review for the hearing today that the property has substantial damage. I attempted to reach out to Ms. Cresson to see if she would agree to settle for the tax commission's appraised value of 355 due to the first floor being completely uninhabitable. We were just not successful in reaching a settlement agreement. I think we have no issue with the tax commission appraisal value. Due to the damage, that breakdown, if we kept the land the same, so it would be consistent throughout the neighborhood, it would be 238,100 for the land, 116,900 for the building, for a total fair market value of 355, which we think is fair to the taxpayer, considering that the first floor is completely uninhabitable.
Thank you. Can we hear from Luke Brewer, LTC Tax Appraiser?
Yes, good morning. Luke Brewer with the Louisiana Tax Commission. I performed a fee simple appraisal on the property at 851 Al Tucson Boulevard. The gross living area that I used was a sketch provided by Ms. Sandy Kennedy, who also works at the Louisiana Tax Commission. She's done an appraisal on this prior. Ms. Cresson did contest the land. So as typical, to determine land value, you look for vacant land sales to compare them out. It ended up being a little bit higher than the assessor's value. It's my experience that Mr. Williams, in most cases, is typically conservative on his land values. I agree with Ms. Cresson after doing an interior inspection that the first floor is uninhabitable, and that square footage was not included in my appraisal. It's more like unfinished storage, which is how it was considered in the appraisal. All 3 of my comparable sales were within 0.2 miles. And after adjustments, the value range was between 287.9 to 359.1. The value adopted was 355,000 with an indicated land value through the comparable land sales approach of 278 and an improvement value of 77,000.
Thank you. Questions from the
Yes, sir.
commission?
Mr. Alvarez, just to confirm the land value, that's consistent with the Lakeview area at $30 per square, correct?
Yes, sir. That's the 238,100 would be consistent with the rest of the area.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I call a motion to accept the assessor agreeing with the LTC staff appraisal, but the land value would be $238,100. The improvements would be $116,900, total of $355,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Could you
Any
please
objection?
repeat that? Oh my,
It's
Hearing none, motion-
$238,100 on the land,
okay.
$116,900 on the improvements, which makes a total of $355,000.
Thank you.
We have a motion. Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we'll take up the appeal of Kathleen C. Cresson versus Assessor L.G. Williams and Orleans Parish Board of Review. Docket number 23-221-72190, and this is for 961 Fillmore Avenue.
Just ma'am, Ms. Crescent.
Okay, so 961 Fillmore Avenue. The city also had their appraisal, Terry Wilson, do it for 317. Russell, is Terry here today? Is your appraiser here?
Ma'am, the appraiser, excuse me, the appraiser does not have to be present for it from the city stuff, so they're not here.
Okay, so they're not here. That's all I want to know. Are they not here? Let's say for Fillmore, I had asked for 250, 300, being that I think properties are going down in New Orleans. People have their properties up for sale. They're not getting what they're asking. I put in exhibits and everything. The state appraisal on Fillmore was, the city wanted 309.9, and the state came back with 285. And I'd be willing to accept the state's appraisal.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Alvarez?
Yes, sir. Our initial valuation of the property at 961 Fillmore Avenue was $309,900. That was our CAM evaluation. It was affirmed by the Board of Review. We did since performed a fee simple appraisal on the property. That fee simple appraisal by Mr. Wilson was $317,000, which is supportive of our initial valuation of our property. I'm sorry, of the taxpayer's property. And we're requesting the tax commission affirm the Board of Review's value at $309,900. The tax commission staff appraisals within range. Everything's in a tight range of value.
Thank you. Mr. Brewer, LTC appraiser?
Yes, sir. Good morning again. I appraised the property at 961 Fillmore Avenue. It's a double. Ms. Cresson contested land, so a land sales or comparable sales approach was done, as well as a sales comparison approach of the whole property and an income approach. All three of my comparable sales are within the half a mile, with two comparable sales being within 0.2 miles. The market approach or comparable sales approach indicates 300,000. The income approach indicates 270. I adopted 285 for my final opinion of value. My land value was a bit higher than the assessor. Again, I stand by what I said earlier about the land assessments. And so the total value is 285. Land value indicated is 208,300. Improvement value 76,700.
Questions from the commission?
May I make a statement that y'all had asked a question of the city, Mr. Alvarez, is all property in Lakeview $30 a square foot? I disagree with that. When I submitted this for Fillmore, I pointed out that there's a block down the street that's by the bridge. I think Russell could tell you better. I think that's only $20 a square foot. And somewhere in here, I had submitted that property, and I do it every year. And that's why I contested land, because it's not true that Lakeview and Lakeshore is $30. There are some houses right down the street. Russell, do you know which one I'm talking about?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. It's 20 or 25. Let's see if I, just bear with me. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Well, may I ask Russell, are there any properties in Lakeview at?
No, ma'am,
20?
this is not a courtroom.
Okay,
You
I'm just,
addressed that-
all right, I'm
addressed
just
that
trying to
this.
learn the rules. If you just bear with me, I should have the address in here because I bring it up every year.
Mr. Chair, I have a question, if I may, in the meantime, for the LTC staff appraiser. Just going to your income approach, you have 4 properties listed, ranging anywhere from a rent per square foot to $1.28 to $1.70, and you adopt a rent of $135. Just on average, it seems lower than that. So just explain how you came to your $1.35 based upon those comparables.
Correct. It is on the lower end of the average, or on the low end of the range. And that's because when I also take into consider condition rating. This was one of my early reports. So in more future reports, if there is a difference in condition rating, I try to include that as well. So you can kind of see that. We trying to learn on the fly like everybody else, but most of these properties were in superior condition than the subject property. And so the subject property would not command the higher end of that range price per square foot.
That as I look at the condition on using the sales comparison approach, they ought to be an average condition.
925 40th Street, comparable sale 1 is in very good condition, whereas the subject is in average condition.
My apologies. My apologies. I was looking at the wrong line.
Oh, that's no problem.
My apologies.
Then you found,
No, I can't find it, but I know there's one like 20 or maybe it's 25 a square foot.
Okay.
It's right, there's a few houses right by the bridge.
okay.
But I do want to point out, and I mentioned it to Luke, the appraiser, the city has I have 1580 square feet. What the city does is they don't care if it's living, under porch, part of a laundry room. So over the years, I have contested with the city that I don't think their square footage, because they don't say, like most appraisers say, living square footage. They just pass by it, shoot it from the sky. So I think they have 1580. A couple of years ago, I got them to agree, I know they took at least 100 square feet off. I say it's 1,400. When I bought the house, they told me it was 1,400. The city keeps putting 1,580. I've gone through this before. I said, part of it's the laundry room under the carport. So I had told Luke I objected to what the city had for the square footage. Apparently, when they change it, they don't pick up the change the next year.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the commission?
Yeah, if I may just make a statement real quick. Taking a look at the income approach to value by the tax commission's appraisal, not saying there's anything wrong with that, but if you were to do a standard average on it, it'd be, and then multiply, it would be 139 and some change, and then times the market rent would come into about 290,000, which is more closer to the 300,000 that the sales comparison approach came in at. Like I said, it's not a critique on the commission's appraisal. We're all in the same kind of range. I think it's more due to rounding differences. And that's the only statement I want to make.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to go with the value of 285,000. That's going to be 178,500 for the land, 106,500 for the improvement.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is
Next, we'll take up the appeal of Kathleen Crescent versus Assessor Errol G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-72191. And this is for 351 Iberville Street.
Okay, so as Iberville, once again, it's an old house. I got rotten cells. So I had asked for 251.9. I think I sent them something for 9,000 to repair one of the sills. And I don't know, jack up the porch or something. The appraiser came in very close on Iberville to the city. On Iberville, he said, Luke said 280,000, and the city wants 280,500. So they just 500 off. And the reason I'd asked for 251.9 is because once again, it's an old house. On a lot of these old houses, you have old termite damage and it doesn't handle water intrusion very well. So once again, I got lots of repairs to do to that under the house. Thank you.
Okay. New Orleans Assessor's Office?
Yes, sir. So, the property was initially valued at 280,500. I was affirmed by the Board of Review. We did a fee simple appraisal that came in at 283,000. We feel that the tax commission should affirm the Board of Review's value at 280,500, considering that the tax commission staff appraisal is a $500 difference. And the reason why I would ask that they affirm the Board of Review's value as opposed to going to the tax commission's appraisal value is that the income approach, the value is 326,250, which appears to not have been taken into consideration for weight. So that being said, I think the $500 difference, is justifiable and that you should affirm the Board of Review's value.
Thank you. Hear from Luke?
Yes, sir. I performed property on 3501 Iberville Street, did an interior inspection. Ms. Cresson also contested the land. All three of my comparable sales are within 0.3 miles. The reason why the income approach wasn't given any weight is I had to go a little bit further out, I think, for one of them. Let's see, I got North Clark in there and South Clark. Let me see about Conti. They're all three right there. To be frank, I think that the comparable sales approach is probably the best indication of value, which is why I did not weight the two approaches to value. Also, we're right on top of each other. But after consideration, my final indication of value was 280,000. My indicated land value after doing the land sales approach was 137.7, and my improvement value is 142.3.
Thank you. Questions from the commission?
I have one question, Mr. Chairman. This for Mr. Russell, Parish Assessor. I'm noticing on a lot of these properties, Mr. Russell, that there's a lot of work that needs to be done on these properties. And with that being said, these properties are also these duplexes are also being rented out. How much does that weigh on the assessed value of what you do to a property if it's making money?
Well, it would, so the sales comparison approach is one of what properties would sell as is. A lot of times investors will take into consideration how much income can be derived from a property, and that's what will, factor in their analysis of how much they're going to ask for the property in the sales comparison approach, sort of an indirect method. The direct method would be the income approach. The value is how much a property is actually making in rent, capitalize that net operating income or do a gross rent multiplier, and that's more of a direct approach to valuation. If that answers your question, sir.
Any additional questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a question for Mr. Brewer. Mr. Brewer, I understand you to say that you discounted or did not use the income approach and went with your sales approach. So as I look at your comparables, you have three. You have a high of 364,000, a low of 279.9, which rounded would be your 280. Your average of all three is 320,000, so that's far in excess. Is there any reason for not utilizing comps 1 and 2 in determining a value?
I gave weight on the lower end value mainly because of the condition of the subject property. It was in fair to average condition. The closest in condition was comparable sale 1 on Clark Street, which was right on top of it at 0.0 miles. The other two that were 0.3 miles away were close, but were in vastly superior condition. And typically when you're having multiple negative adjustments, what you can end up having is what's called an artificially inflated value of a property. And conversely, if you have a property that has consistent positive adjustments, you can typically have what's called an artificially deflated value. So I thought it was appropriate to err on the side of caution and say on the lower end of that range instead of adopting the higher end, because almost all the adjustments, save for a positive adjustment on comp 3 for the street and a positive adjustment for the square foot living area on comparable sale 1, I think every other adjustment is negative in the report.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to accept the parish assessor's office, a value of $61,200 on land, improvements $219,300, a total value of $280,500.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any question on the motion? Any
I'm
objection?
sorry, could you please repeat that?
$61,200 on the land, $219,300 on the improvements, which equals a total of $280,500.
Okay, I have one question, and when I look at the bottom line, but the city does it between land and improvement. And the state tax commission will come out with their own land and improvement. Sometimes the city will pick up the 280, but then they'll reapportion the land and the improvements to what they see fit. Is that allowable?
The city tries to keep consistent on the land values in the area, and usually not a requirement, but usually the tax commission tries to confirm with that.
Okay, but there is a difference. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
So when y'all give these numbers, is that what the city should pick up in the change order? Like improvements versus land?
When we set the value, that's going to be the value that the city sets for that property.
Okay, so you only care about the total value? am
No,
I-
ma'am. They're going to set that value for the land and for the improvements.
Okay.
That's why we approve it with those
That
two
way,
things.
okay, got it. So
Hey,
they
and-
should pick up with
And
you.
ma'am, I know you're not doing it intentionally. I'm gonna ask you to please quit interrupting when we have a motion ready to vote.
Oh,
We'll
I'm
re-
sorry.
We'll repeat the numbers to you after, but just, this is third time, so let's
Okay.
just not do
Oh,
that.
well, yeah, because it's quick. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any questions on the motion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have the appeal of Kathleen Crescent versus Assessor Earl G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-72192. And this is for 6720 General Hack Street.
Okay, I would like to state that because the state gives much more value to land, I have dismissed those two appeals with the city. So there's two lots, 6704 and 6720. And let me get you the numbers. So the 6720 is 23-22172-192. And the 6704 is 23-221-172-193. And I've dismissed it with the city.
So you would like to withdraw them with us?
Yes, ma'am. For those two lots, the numbers I gave.
If it pleases the commission, I can just clarify a little bit. The taxpayer withdrew both of those appeals. However, they withdrew through the Modria dispute system as opposed to sending it to the tax commission. We submitted screenshots of that, and we have no objection to the withdrawals.
Thank you. Those two will be withdrawn.
All right, well, our final appeal for you, Ms. Kathleen, is the appeal, Kathleen Crescent versus Assessor Earl G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-76245.
Okay, so it's an old tiny house uptown. The city raised it. They go up every year. It seems like I fight them every year on this property, but this last year they wanted 302. The state came back with 296,000. I had asked for 284,600. We got another old house that they all need repairs. All these old houses, when somebody said, well, do you make money off of them? I beg to argue that, okay? So I find like I'm having to go down on rents. The repairs are going higher up. So that's the reason I asked for 284,600.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Alvarez?
Yes, just to expedite this, the Orleans Parish Assessor's Office sent a letter to the taxpayer as a settlement offer for the tax commission staff appraisal value of the 296. It was not returned to our office.
And may I state why it was not returned? Because they were trying to switch the land improvement thing. They want to switch it to what they want, not what y'all want. That's why I didn't approve it.
Okay, can we hear from, Mr. Brewer?
Yes, sir. Good morning. I did an appraisal on 513 through 15 Arabella Street. Ms. Cresson did contest the land, so a comparable land sales analysis was performed. Again, it was verify. It was higher, substantially higher than the assessor's assessment value for land. I also did a market approach and income approach of the property. All three of my comparable sales were within 0.4 miles. After adjustments, the value range for the comparable sales analysis was 228,100 to 345,500. The comparable sales approach indicates a value of 285,000. The income approach indicates a value of 312,000. After consideration, my final opinion value was 296,000, with 182,700 in indicated land value and an improvement value of 113,300.
Questions from the commission?
I have a question for the appraiser. Luke, I noticed that your land values are substantially higher than the city's. Is that because you're appraising the land as if vacant versus there's a house on it?
So an appraisal of a residential property is an appraisal of land and improvements. To get a baseline for a land value, you can do that a couple ways, but the most common way, especially with residential appraisal, is to determine land value through land sales. You look for vacant land sales that have sold within a reasonable time frame and determine what, if the property was vacant, what that land would sell for, and that gives you a land value. Everything else on top of that is your improvement value. And so yes, we look at properties of vacant lots or lots that have small improvements that maybe we can adjust out, but we're trying to determine what the land would be as vacant, and then your excess value is the improvement value. Sometimes properties inhibit value of a subject property and subtract value of the land instead of adding to it.
Thank you, Luke.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any
Yes,
questions?
ma'am.
Commission?
If it pleases the commission, I apologize for the interruption. I just wanted to give you the numbers on the settlement letter since we had a different land rate. It was 78,300 for the land, 217,700 for the building, for a total fair market value of 296.
Thank you.
And if I may address that, what I had told the city is I wanted to settle everything or nothing. And so I talked to Mr. Rodriguez, I think, over there, and he was very nice. And I said, just have everybody call me and we can maybe just agree to this and don't even have to go. But
Gotcha.
it didn't work out that way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions by the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to settle on $296,000. That's going to be 78,300 for the land value, 217,700 for the improvement value.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any question on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
All right. Thank y'all very much.
Our final appeal of the day is the appeal of Tamar Ackland versus Assessor L.G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-75006. The taxpayer is not present.
Mr. Alvarez?
Yes, the Orleans Parish Assessor's Office, let me pull this up real quick. We initially had valued the property at $317,500. This is a large lot located in the Algiers Point neighborhood, right off of Opelousas, which is one of the main streets in Algiers Point and kind of like on the boundary. I talked to the taxpayer. We had an agreement, a verbal agreement over the phone. I submitted an email to him for him to reply back to all, and I copied the tax commission, Chandrika and Tanisha, so that to see if, if you want to settle with us, which he agreed verbally, just reply back. He has not replied back as of yet. But like I said, we do have a verbal agreement for the value of $259,000 for the land.
LTC appraiser, Mr. Blanchard?
Good morning, Commissioners. I appraised property on March 19th, 2024. The estimated fair market value to fee simple interest of the property as of January 1, 2023. There's 6 recognized land valuation techniques. We utilize the sales comparison approach, which is the preferred method when there's ample sales data, which was in this case. Supplied 3 sales in the Algiers and subjects market, which range from $866 a foot to $1,521 a foot. After adjusting for size, corner advantage, and site conditions, we had an adjusted value range of $6.06 a foot to $11.41, and we concluded $7 a foot for the subject property. Of note is I want to point out that there's a typo in the appraisal, and it's on the lower left. It cites that it's an interior site when in fact it's a corner site, having actual 3 corners. The reason that's relevant is that corner advantage was part of what mitigated the size adjustments that were applied in the site condition adjustments. The site has a number of slabs on the property that have not yet been removed, and it would have to be removed. It should be considered that to appraise the property at its highest and best use. So again, I concluded $7 a foot for the property for a final value of $202,000.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Russell, what was the value?
$259,000.
Fine. Any questions from the commission?
Mr. Alvarez, I have a question. So the initial assessment was at $11 a square foot,
Yes,
and that area is Algiers Point Com 51.
yes. So the $11 a square foot is consistent in Algiers Point throughout the entire Algiers. This property, the reason why we offered to settle with the taxpayers, because it's a substantial property. It's over 28,000 square feet, which is a lot larger than any other property, and there would be an economy of scale applied to it, which then would necessitate a slight reduction in value.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate the clarification.
Any other questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept the offer, $259,000 for the land.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Is there any other matters that may appear before the commission?
There's just one. If it pleases the commission, there is an appeal, item number D. We had a consent agreement with the taxpayer, but we don't have a signed settlement. So I just wanted to bring that to the commission's attention. It's not settled because she wasn't able to sign it. She's in transit. So we'd ask the commission to affirm the consent agreement between both parties. It would be for, yes, sir.
And this is for docket number 23-221-71185, and it's Assessor's Appeal 13-19-21 Constant Street LLC.
We have a offer from the assessor on a consent agreement. It's gonna give us the number.
Yes, sir. The land would be 75,600. The building would be 382,400 for a total fair market value of 458,000.
Asking for a motion to accept it pending, I'm assuming, signature of the taxpayer and.
That is correct.
So, essentially, Chairman, we have an agreement between the taxpayer and the assessor, but because the assessor doesn't have a signed settlement, he wants us to enter a consent decision, which is fine, 1 page. We'll enter the settlement between the parties at the values that Mr. Alvarez indicated.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the consent for a settlement of 458,000, land of 75,600, improvements of 382,400. Again, this is for docket 23-22171-185.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you, Commissioners.
There being no further items before do I entertain a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair, call for a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, the motion is adopted.